I remember the exact moment everything changed. I was 16, standing in the middle of our cramped kitchen with the smell of burnt toast clinging to the air, and my dad leaned back in his chair, folded his arms, and said it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. "You don't need anything fancy. Save that for your brother's big day." He didn't even look up from his paper. My mom, standing by the sink scrubbing a pan that didn't need scrubbing, just nodded and said, "You should be grateful he gets more. You know how hard he's worked." I didn't say anything. I just stood there, holding the cheap little flyer I had printed off at the library for my birthday dinner. I had picked a small local Italian place with a discount menu on Wednesdays. Nothing flashy, nothing expensive. It was just the first time I tried to plan something on my own. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd show a little excitement. But instead, I got a lecture about being practical and how we had to prioritize, which was their polite way of saying, "Your brother comes first." That night, I went up to my room, closed the door, and stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours. I wasn't angry yet, not really. I was just tired. Tired of being the one expected to understand, to compromise, to wait my turn that never seemed to come. My name's Drew, by the way. I'm 27 now, but back then I was just a quiet kid with too many thoughts and no place to put them. My brother's name is Tyler. 2 years older, louder, bolder, always the center of attention. He wasn't mean, exactly, not back then. But he never missed a chance to step into the spotlight. If I brought home a B+, he had an A. If I scored a goal, he had a hat trick. And our parents? They lapped it up like he could do no wrong. "Tyler has potential," my dad would say. "Tyler's going places," my mom added. Me? I was dependable, reliable. Translation, invisible. I stopped asking for things after that birthday. No more dinner flyers. No more subtle hints about getting to choose a movie or pick a family activity. I learned early that the more I wanted, the more disappointed I'd be. So I got good at wanting less. At least, that's what I told myself. High school passed in a blur of second-place finishes and being the guy in the background of the family photos. College? They didn't even visit when I left. Tyler got a whole weekend trip, a new comforter set, and matching school colors for his dorm. Me? I took a bus, alone, with a second-hand duffel bag and a stack of ramen noodles. But I wasn't bitter. Not yet. I just adjusted. I figured, maybe this was just how life worked. Some people shine brighter. Some people get picked first. And some of us have to learn to navigate by our own light. Things started to shift when I got my first internship. It wasn't glamorous, just an entry-level admin role at a mid-sized real estate firm. But for the first time, someone looked at me and said, "You're good at this." And they meant it. No comparisons, no backhanded compliments. Just straight-up acknowledgement. I remember walking home that day, feeling 10 feet tall. I didn't tell my parents right away. I had learned that sharing good news usually led to a story about how Tyler had done it first or better. And sure enough, when I eventually mentioned it at Thanksgiving, carefully, cautiously, over turkey and canned cranberry sauce, my mom blinked and said, "Oh, that's nice. Did you hear Tyler got promoted? His boss said he's management material." I nodded, smiled, passed the potatoes. Same old script. Still, I kept moving. I saved every paycheck, took on side projects, said yes to every opportunity. And when I graduated, I didn't go home. I stayed in the city, found a tiny studio apartment and a used mattress off Craigslist. Tyler, meanwhile, had moved back home to save up. Our parents were more than happy to turn his room into a man cave, complete with a flat screen and a recliner my dad used to say was too fancy when I'd suggested one for the living room. They sent him care packages, bought him new dress shoes for interviews, paid for his car repairs, twice. Me? I once asked if I could borrow the old lawnmower from the garage for a landscaping gig I picked up on weekends. My dad said it was too much trouble to dig it out. I stopped asking after that, too. The thing about being overlooked is that you start to see everything. You catch the little moments, the throwaway lines, the tone shifts. Like when Tyler crashed his car and my mom cried for days. But when I got mugged walking home from work, she told me I should have been more careful. Or when my dad lent Tyler $5,000 just to get him back on his feet, and later told me I was lucky to be so independent. They never meant to be cruel, but they were careless. And careless love can hurt just as much as none at all. Fast forward a few years. I'm 25, working in commercial real estate, finally in a position to make real moves. I've built a solid network, learned the ropes, and started putting away money, serious money. I'm not flashy. No new car, no designer suits. But I'm secure, quietly, comfortably. And then one day, I get a call from my mom. "Drew, honey," she says, in that syrupy voice she saves for guilt tripping. "Can you come by the house this weekend? We want to talk about something." Something in her tone puts me on edge. "What's it about?" She hesitates. "It's about your brother." Of course it is. I drive down that Saturday, heart heavy with the usual mix of resentment and duty. The house hasn't changed. Same faded shutters, same squeaky screen door, same framed photos of Tyler's graduation on the mantle. I sit on the same couch I used to nap on as a kid, and my parents sit across from me like we're about to start a performance review. "It's Tyler," my dad begins. "He's in a bit of trouble." I wait. "He made a few risky investments," my mom jumps in. "And his job? Well, they let him go. Unfairly, of course. He just needs a little help getting back on track," Dad says. "A loan. Just to get him through the next few months." I stare at them. "How much?" $40,000, my dad says, like he's asking me to pass the salt. I actually laugh. "I can't help it." "You're joking. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important," my mom pleads. "You're doing so well, Drew. And Tyler, he's struggling." And when I was struggling, I ask, "Where were you then?" My dad frowns. "This isn't about the past. The past is exactly what this is about," I say, my voice rising. "You made it clear who mattered more. For years. Now you want me to bail him out." "It's what family does," Mom whispers. I stand. "I'll think about it." And I do. For days. But not in the way they expect. Because what they don't know, what no one knows, is that the kid they overlooked has been making plans. Quietly. Carefully. I've built something they never saw coming. And when their golden child needed help, what I did caught everyone off guard. I didn't sleep much after that conversation. Not because I was stressed or uncertain. I just kept playing it over and over in my head. The way they asked. The way they looked at me, like it was already decided. Like I was some kind of safety net that had been stitched into their lives without my consent. They hadn't seen me as a person in years. Just a resource. A spare battery. A plan B. I was used to being sidelined. But that was the first time I felt commodified. Still, I didn't react. Not right away. I went back to my apartment. Back to work. Back to the gym, the coffee shop on 3rd, my quiet routines. I didn't answer when my mom called a few days later. I figured, if she really needed something, she'd leave a message. She didn't. She just texted me the next day. "Any update? Tyler is counting on you." Not, "We appreciate you thinking about it." Not, "Hope you're doing okay." Just pressure. That's when something inside me shifted. I started thinking differently. Not just about the loan. About the whole picture. My life. My history. I went through old photos on my phone. Not many of family, but enough. A birthday dinner where Tyler was in every shot while I was mostly cropped out. A graduation pic where they bought him a class ring and I didn't even get a card. A blurry snapshot of a family vacation I hadn't been invited to, found later on Facebook with a caption that read, "Family time, red heart." It was all there, piece by piece. And it painted a story I had spent years trying not to read. But the final page came a week later. It was a Sunday. I had just gotten back from a meeting with a client, an older couple looking to buy a duplex downtown. I was feeling good. Productive. I poured myself some coffee, sat down at my desk, and saw it. A Facebook post from my mom. It was a photo. Tyler, standing in front of a new SUV. A brand new 2023 model. Still had the dealership tags. Big red bow on the hood. The caption? "So proud of our boy. He's been through so much." Sometimes you just have to show up for the people you love. I stared at it for a long time. Then I checked the comments. Did he finally get that job offer? So glad to see him doing well. You guys are such great parents. Red heart, red heart, red heart. One comment stood out. It was from my Aunt Janine. "Wait, didn't you say Drew was helping him out?" My mom had replied, "Family always supports each other. We're just lucky Drew came through." I felt my ears ring. My mouth actually went dry. I hadn't given them a dime. I hadn't agreed to anything. And yet, there it was. The implication. The credit. The story, rewritten in real time to fit their narrative. I called my mom. She didn't answer. So I texted, "Take the post down." No reply. Then, 30 minutes later, a message from my dad. "Don't overreact." Tyler needed a boost. We didn't say anything untrue. I just stared at that text. Didn't say anything untrue. That was it. That was the moment. It wasn't just favoritism. It wasn't just emotional neglect. They were now using my name, my effort, my image. Without my consent. It was betrayal. I didn't respond. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I started planning. But first, I needed to understand just how deep the rot went. So I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long time. I went home. Unannounced. I drove out to the old house on a Thursday evening. The sky was overcast, casting everything in this weird gray filter that made the neighborhood feel like it was frozen in time. Same cracked driveway. Same crooked mailbox with our last name, Weston, peeling in chipped paint. I parked across the street, sat for a minute, then crossed and knocked. My mom answered the door. She looked surprised, but only mildly. "Drew, I didn't know you were coming. Didn't think I needed a reservation," I said flatly. She gave me a tight smile. "Well, come in. Your brother's here." Of course he was. Tyler was on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He looked up, grinned, and said, "Hey, long time no see." "Yeah," I said, eyeing the brand new car keys on the coffee table. "Been busy funding your midlife upgrade." He blinked. "What?" "Never mind." I turned to my parents. "We need to talk. All of us." They sat. I didn't. I stood in front of the fireplace like I was giving a lecture I hadn't been paid for. "I saw the post," I said. "I saw what you said about me helping Tyler." My mom opened her mouth. I raised a hand. "No, you don't get to spin this. You asked me for $40,000. I never said yes. But instead of waiting, you went ahead and made it look like I bailed him out. That's dishonest." My dad shifted in his seat. "It wasn't dishonest. It was aspirational." "Excuse me. We knew you'd come through." "You always do," my mom said softly, like that was supposed to be a compliment. "That's the problem," I said, voice cracking. "You just assumed. You always assume. That I'll show up. That I'll fix things. That I'll carry water for your golden child while he gets a trophy for being thirsty." Tyler stood. "Okay, now you're being dramatic." "No," I snapped. "I'm being accurate." My dad scowled. "We didn't mean to hurt your feelings, Drew. But we had to help your brother. And the only way to do that was to throw me under the bus?" I asked. "To make it look like I'm some silent donor while you parade him around in a new SUV?" "It wasn't like that," my mom said quickly. "We were proud. That's all." "No," I said, stepping back. "You were proud of him. As always. And once again, I was just the means to an end." There was a long silence. I turned to leave. "Drew," my mom called after me. "Don't do this. You're being emotional." I stopped, laughed bitterly. "Yeah, I am." Finally, I walked out and didn't look back. That night, I made 3 decisions. 1, I would never let them use me again. 2, I was done pretending the past hadn't shaped me. And 3, I was going to hit them where it hurt the most, their image. Because for all their talk about love and loyalty, my parents cared about one thing more than anything else: looking good. And Tyler? He cared about comfort, about ease, about being the center of a world that bent for him without question. So I decided to take that away. But first, I needed to gather some information. I reached out to a friend of mine, Jenna, who worked in private finance. Sharp as nails, discreet, and someone I'd helped out a few months back with a property negotiation. She owed me a favor. "Can you check on a few things for me?" I asked her over the phone. "Of course," she said. "What are we looking at?" "Someone bought Tyler a car. Big purchase. Might have come from a second mortgage or loan. I want to know where the money came from. Legally." She paused. "Drew, what are you planning?" I didn't answer. She exhaled. "All right. Send me what you've got." 2 days later, she called me back. "Your parents refinanced the house," she said. "Pulled out a pretty big chunk." My heart thudded. "How much?" 45 grand. Transferred straight into a joint account between your dad and Tyler." I closed my eyes. "That's what I needed. Thanks." "You gonna burn them down?" she asked, half joking. "Not yet," I said. "But they're going to wish they hadn't made me the background character." Because what they didn't know, couldn't have known, was that while they were prioritizing Tyler's comfort, I had spent the last 6 months finalizing a business deal that would change everything. A deal that involved property. A deal that involved their neighborhood. A deal that would make them realize, too late, just how much power I had quietly built while they weren't paying attention. But before I pulled that trigger, there was one more betrayal coming. One that would push everything past the point of no return. And it came the following week, in the form of a wedding invitation. Not mine. Tyler's. And the guest list? Well, let's just say my name wasn't on it. I found out about the wedding the same way I found out about most things in my family, by accident. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I had just wrapped a lease agreement and was grabbing a late lunch downtown when my phone buzzed with a message from my cousin Lindsay. We hadn't talked in a while, not because anything was wrong, just life drifting us apart. Her text said, "Hey, are you going to Tyler's wedding next month? I wanted to know if you'd be down to split a gift. Registry's pricey LOL." I actually dropped my fork. I blinked at the screen like maybe it would change if I stared hard enough. I scrolled up. No missed messages. No invites. No heads up. I hadn't heard a word from anyone about a wedding. So I texted back. "Wedding." Her typing bubble popped up right away. "Yeah? Wait, you didn't know? I assumed you were in the wedding party or something." I stared at that message for a long time. My stomach twisted in this slow, heavy knot. I didn't even know Tyler was engaged. I hadn't seen him with anyone serious in years. And now, not only was he getting married, he hadn't even told me. Worse, my own parents hadn't either. I didn't reply to Lindsay. I just put my phone down and sat there, alone at that little cafe table, with a plate of half-eaten pasta going cold. There's this moment when betrayal stops shocking you. It doesn't hit you like a truck anymore. It settles in, like a familiar ache. I didn't cry. I didn't storm out. I just felt hollow, like someone had scooped out the part of me that still hoped for something different. I went home that night and sat in the dark for a long time. That was rock bottom for me. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the favoritism. It was the full circle confirmation that I wasn't family, not in the way that counted. I was the extra, the afterthought, the dependable background character who didn't need a seat at the table. That night, I didn't sleep. And the next morning, I turned off my phone. I didn't want apologies. I didn't want explanations. I needed silence and space. And in that space, I started to rebuild. The first step? Letting go. I stopped checking their socials. I muted their group chat. I packed up the remaining family photos I had in my apartment. Only 3, all from over a decade ago, and tucked them away in a shoebox under my bed. I wasn't erasing them. I was just clearing the air. The second step? Refocusing. I threw myself into work. Not in the unhealthy, ignore everything kind of way. More like intentional investment. I restructured my schedule, cut out distractions, started getting up earlier, staying organized, being present. My clients noticed. So did my team. 3 months after Tyler's engagement bombshell, I closed on a multi-unit property that had been sitting in limbo for a year. No one thought it was worth the risk. Too many repairs, bad location, sketchy tenants. But I saw potential, and I had time. So I negotiated hard, cleaned it up, hired a new management company, and flipped the narrative. Within 2 quarters, that property turned profitable. I got offers. Good ones. I didn't sell. I held. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't want fast success. I wanted roots. By that fall, I had acquired 2 more mid-tier units on the south side of the city, both undervalued, both neglected. I called them my ghost houses. Everyone else overlooked them. I didn't. In a way, they reminded me of me. Quiet, unappreciated, but full of potential if someone just took the time. Meanwhile, my personal life was beginning to take shape too. I started seeing a woman named Grace, a commercial photographer I met through a mutual client. She was smart, a little sarcastic, always 5 steps ahead in conversation. The first time we grabbed dinner, she asked me, straight up, "What's your family like?" I didn't flinch. I just said, "They're complicated, but I'm working on becoming the kind of person I wish I'd had growing up." She smiled at that, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to apologize for my past. Grace didn't need me to be fixed. She just needed me to be real. That winter, we started spending more time together. She helped me photograph one of my restored properties for marketing. I helped her set up her new studio. It was the most balanced relationship I'd ever been in. And still, not once did my family reach out. Not for my birthday. Not for Christmas. Not even to check in. I guess they thought silence would punish me. But it only clarified things. Because here's the truth. Rock bottom doesn't have to be a grave. It can be a foundation. And mine was solid. By the time spring rolled around, I was managing over a dozen rental units, had hired 2 part-time assistants, and was quietly working on acquiring a commercial lot just outside my old neighborhood, the one my parents still lived in. The lot was nothing special on the surface, just a rundown strip of stores, a shuttered laundromat, a failed vape shop, and a corner bakery that had been boarded up since COVID. But I saw the future. I partnered with a friend who ran a nonprofit focused on youth development. Together, we drafted a proposal to turn the lot into a mixed-use community space. Affordable apartments up top, community classrooms, and rentable creative space below. I financed most of it myself. Quietly. Strategically. When the paperwork cleared and I signed the deed, I drove past my parents' street on the way home. They still had no idea. I wasn't doing it to hurt them. Not really. But there was something deeply satisfying about owning the land within walking distance of the house I was never invited back to. And then, as if the universe had a sense of timing, I ran into Tyler. Literally. I was leaving a meeting at the city planning office when he stepped out of the elevator across the hall. Dressed in a crumpled blazer, phone pressed to his ear, pacing. He didn't see me at first. I watched him for a second. He looked tired. Less put together than usual. His tone was clipped, agitated. Then he saw me. His eyes widened for half a second, then narrowed. "Drew?" he said, lowering the phone. "Tyler," I said calmly. He cleared his throat. "Wow. Long time." "Yeah." He looked me up and down. "Heard you've been busy." I smiled. "You could say that." "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Business," I said. "You?" He hesitated. "Looking at commercial spaces. Trying to launch a new venture. You know how it is." I nodded. "Sure." There was a beat of silence. Then he said, a little too casually, "You get the wedding invite, right?" I raised an eyebrow. "Nope." His face flushed. "Oh, must have been a mix-up. I told Mom to." "Don't," I said quietly. "You don't have to pretend." He swallowed. "Look, man, I know things have been weird, but we're family." I tilted my head. "Are we?" He didn't answer. I took a breath. "Good luck with the venture. Hope it works out." Then I turned and walked away. It wasn't a mic drop. It wasn't revenge. It was closure. But that wasn't the last time I'd see him. Because 2 weeks later, I got a voicemail from my dad. I hadn't heard his voice in almost a year. "Drew, we need to talk. It's about Tyler. He's in trouble. Please call me back." I didn't. Not right away. I needed time to think. To decide. Because part of me, the old part, still wanted to help. Still felt that flicker of guilt, of obligation. But another part, the stronger part, knew better. I had built something. Earned something. Grown into someone I could respect. And now, the people who had ignored me, needed me. The question was, would I let them in? Or would I show them what it truly felt like to be left out? When I was a kid, my dad used to say something whenever he didn't want to talk about something serious. He'd wave his hand dismissively and mutter, "It'll sort itself out." It used to drive me crazy. If the car was making a weird noise, it'll sort itself out. If Tyler broke something and blamed me, let it go. It'll sort itself out. If I came home looking tired, worn down, with questions about college, money, or just how to deal with the way things were, don't stress. Life sorts itself out. What he really meant was, it's not my problem. Now here he was, years later, leaving messages on my phone like a man who was finally realizing maybe it wasn't going to sort itself out this time. I didn't return his call. Not for 3 days. Not because I was trying to be petty. I just needed space to think. I was done reacting. Everything I did now had to be deliberate. By the 4th voicemail, he stopped trying to sound calm. "Drew, this is serious. Your brother, he's gotten himself into something bad. I know we haven't seen eye to eye, but we're still family. Just, please call me back." Still, I waited. Because I knew this time, they needed me. And I needed to know exactly how far they'd fallen before I played my hand. So I called someone who might know more than my dad would admit, my cousin Lindsay. The same one who'd texted me about Tyler's wedding. We hadn't spoken since that awkward moment, but when I messaged her and asked if she had time for a coffee, she replied within the hour. "You buying? I'm always down for family tea." We met at a quiet cafe near her work, a trendy place with overpriced matcha and indie playlists. Lindsay worked in corporate HR, and she had that air of someone who heard everyone's secrets but rarely told her own. Still, she'd always been fair with me, not playing sides, just watching from the bleachers like a curious spectator. She sipped her drink, leaned forward, and asked, "So, you heard about the loan sharks?" I blinked. "Wait, actual loan sharks?" She nodded. "Yeah. Tyler apparently borrowed money from some sketchy private lender, not a bank, not even a legit credit union. We're talking handshake agreements, crazy interest, unlicensed stuff. Why would he do that?" I asked. Probably trying to launch that startup of his, she said, rolling her eyes. You know, the marketing one? Hypernova Strategies, or whatever it was called. He blew through his severance from the last job, then borrowed more to keep it afloat. The wedding pushed it over the edge. I leaned back, silent for a beat. Lindsay gave me a knowing look. He's in deep. Like, sell your stuff and run deep. And your parents co-signed one of the loans, apparently. That's why they're freaking out. My eyebrows lifted. They didn't tell me that. Of course not, she said. They want you to swoop in and fix it without asking questions. Classic Drew move, right? I let out a breath. Not this time. She studied me for a second. Good. About time. We sat for another half hour. She told me about the wedding. Small, rushed, poorly planned. Apparently, the bride's family wasn't thrilled either, especially once money became tight. Tyler had tried to mask it, but everyone could tell something was off. Then came the business collapse, the missed payments, and finally, the threats. My parents had tried to keep it quiet, but in small towns, bad news travels fast. And now they were out of moves. But I wasn't. I thanked Lindsay, bought her another overpriced drink, and headed home. And on that walk, I began laying the groundwork. Because now, for the first time, I held every card. I had financial independence, local real estate leverage, my family's secret and growing desperation, and a reputation for being the quiet, dependable one, which meant no one would see it coming when I made my move. Step 1. I reconnected with Jenna, my finance friend. I gave her an updated picture of what was happening, then asked her to do a deep dive, not just on Tyler, but on my parents. Their mortgage, their assets, everything. Within 3 days, she came back with gold. They took out a second mortgage to fund Tyler's startup, she said. Used the house as collateral. The interest rate's brutal. And now that Tyler's behind on his end, the lender is circling. I whistled. How long do they have? Maybe 6 months before foreclosure proceedings start, assuming they don't default sooner. My family home, the one they wouldn't even let me mow the lawn of, about to be taken. Poetic, in a cruel sort of way. Step 2. I met with my attorney. We had already been working on a few property ventures together, but now I wanted something more, a shell company. Not illegal, just protective. I didn't want any purchases tracing back to my name. Nothing shady, I clarified. Just a layer between me and the assets. He raised an eyebrow, but nodded. Understood. Step 3. I made a quiet inquiry about their home through a contact at the bank. Purely hypothetical, I said. What would happen if someone were interested in acquiring a foreclosed property in that neighborhood? He told me. If the mortgage defaulted, it would go to auction. But in some cases, especially if someone covered the debt early, the bank might be open to a private buyer taking over the note, especially if it avoided court and legal mess. Interesting. Step 4. I waited. Not passively. I kept building, kept acquiring. But in the background, I watched. Every ignored call, every missed payment, every little sign that the storm was worsening. And sure enough, within 2 months, the dam broke. It started with a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was shaking. Drew, please. We don't know what to do. They came to the house today. Left a notice. Your father won't admit it, but I think he's scared. Please just call me. I didn't. Not yet. I needed them to sit in it. To feel it. For the first time in their lives, they were powerless. Vulnerable. Out of control. Just like I had been for years. But I wasn't cruel. Not heartless. I didn't want them homeless. I didn't want Tyler hurt. I just wanted them to see me. The real me. Not the backup plan. Not the reliable shadow. Me. And if it took shaking their world to do it, so be it. Step 5. I arranged a meeting. I texted my dad a date, a time, and an address. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a directive. Be there. No one else. He showed up, right on time. He looked older. Smaller, somehow. Like life had finally whittled away at the edges of his certainty. The address led him to one of my newest acquisitions, a sleek, glass-walled office on the edge of downtown. I'd moved my operations there a month earlier. I met him in the lobby. Didn't shake his hand. Just gestured to the elevator. Inside, we rode in silence. When we stepped into the conference room, he looked around, clearly impressed but trying not to show it. You own this? He asked. I nodded. Among other things. He sat, fidgeted, cleared his throat. I'm guessing you know why I'm here. I folded my hands. I do. He hesitated. Then, with visible effort, said, We're in trouble, Drew. I know. We didn't mean for it to go this far. We thought we could manage. That Tyler would land something. But the lender's been calling. Showing up. Your mom's a wreck. Why not tell me sooner? I asked. He looked down. Pride. Stubbornness. Maybe shame. I said nothing. He met my eyes. We need help. And I'm asking. Not demanding. Just asking. That was new. I nodded slowly. I can help. But on one condition. Anything. I leaned forward. You sign over the house. He blinked. What? You and Mom sign over the deed. I'll pay off the mortgage. Clear the debt. But the house becomes mine. He stared at me. You'd take our home? I'd save it from foreclosure. I corrected. And I'd let you stay? Rent-free, if you want. But legally? It would be mine. He looked stunned. Why would you? Because I'm done being the fallback. If I'm going to save this family from a mess I didn't create, I want it to mean something. He didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he said, You've changed. I smiled. No. You just never noticed who I really was. He swallowed hard. I'll talk to your mother. You do that. We stood. As I walked him out, he paused at the door. Drew, thank you. I didn't respond. Not with words. I just nodded. Once. Because now the stage was set. And soon, very soon, everyone was going to find out who really held the power in this family. And when Tyler came knocking, well, let's just say I had something special planned for him. The papers were signed on a rainy Tuesday. My parents came in quietly, both looking like they hadn't slept in days. My mom wouldn't meet my eyes. My dad barely said a word. The lawyer walked them through each section of the agreement, the deed transfer, the settlement terms, the waived rent clause, and they initialed like people signing away the last of their pride. Because in a way they were. After the last signature, my mom looked up. Her voice cracked. Why are you doing this, Drew? I met her gaze. Calm. Steady. Because someone had to. She didn't respond. They stood to leave, and I let them. No hugs. No fake pleasantries. I had what I needed. The house. The power. The final word. But Tyler was still coming. See, while my parents were digging their financial grave, he was digging a deeper one with a borrowed shovel. After the wedding disaster and the business flop, he had started freelancing, jumping from client to client, overpromising and underdelivering. He used buzzwords like scalability and synergy, but he couldn't meet a deadline to save his life. And once his name got around as unreliable, the offers dried up fast. He tried to pivot into crypto, then NFTs, then drop shipping, and failed. Every time. Then, in his desperation, he made one final, glorious mistake. He came to me. It started with a message. Hey, heard you're doing well. I've got a pitch I think you'd love. I didn't answer. Then a second message. Bro, seriously, this is solid. I've got an idea for a startup that could actually scale. I just need someone who gets it. Let's grab lunch. I waited 3 days. Then I replied. Sure. Let's talk. My office. Thursday at 1. When he walked in, he had that same overconfident swagger I'd seen our whole lives. Like the world still owed him something. Man, this place is nice, he said, glancing around. Didn't know you were running things at this level. I smiled. You didn't ask. He laughed. Guess I was busy with my own stuff. Anyway, he pulled out a tablet. I brought a deck. This idea? It's next level. Think digital infrastructure meets content monetization. We build a platform that helps mid-tier creators scale their audience and automate ad revenue. I've got some mock-ups, early interest from a few small streamers. I held up a hand. Stop. He blinked. What? I'm not investing, I said. He frowned. You haven't even seen the... I don't need to. I'm not investing. Not in you. His jaw tightened. Why the hell did you even ask me to come here then? I leaned forward. To say it to your face. You used me. Our whole lives. You walked into every room expecting applause, and I waited in the wings cleaning up your messes. But that's over. He scoffed. So what, you're punishing me? Acting like some big shot now. No, I said calmly. I am a big shot now, and I didn't get here by coasting on pity. He opened his mouth to argue, but I wasn't done. You lied about the car. You lied about the loan. You let Mom and Dad think you were the victim when you were the storm. And now you want my help? After excluding me from your wedding? After dragging my name through the mud in your pity story? He looked away, but I wasn't finished. I bought the house, I said. Their house. It's mine now. He turned sharply. What? They were about to lose it. So I stepped in. Saved them. Paid off their debt. Legally, the deed is in my name. His face paled. You're kidding. Nope. So what? You're kicking them out. No. I let them stay. Rent-free. I wanted them to see what grace looks like when it's real. He didn't say anything. His ego was deflating by the second. Then I pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. What's this? Your bailout. He eyed it suspiciously. You said. I said I wouldn't invest. I didn't say I wouldn't offer you a way out. That's a job contract. Entry level. My company. Real work. Real hours. Modest pay. But you'd be earning it. He stared at the papers like they were written in another language. I'm offering you a life raft, I said. But not a throne. He pushed the folder back. You expect me to work for you? I shrugged. You asked for help. This is it. He stood. This is pathetic. No, I said, standing too. What's pathetic is a grown man asking for handouts from the brother he spent a decade ignoring. He didn't say goodbye, just stormed out, face red with shame or rage, maybe both. I watched him go. That night, I got a call from my dad. Tyler came by. I figured. He's upset. I'm sure. Silence. Then, you really bought the house. I did. He sighed. I never thought I'd see the day. Well, I said, maybe you should have looked harder. Click. I didn't hear from Tyler again for weeks. I assumed he'd go quiet. Lick his wounds. Maybe take the job eventually, maybe not. Either way, it didn't matter. Because the best revenge was already done. I had taken everything they used to ignore me and turned it into something they couldn't look away from. I wasn't the backup plan anymore. I was the legacy. I didn't need their approval. I didn't crave their praise. I had outgrown their world. And as I stood one afternoon on the front porch of my house, the one I used to tiptoe around like a ghost, I looked at the neighborhood, the fading sunlight, the future I had built from the ground up, and smiled. They raised a golden child, but they buried a diamond. And I didn't just shine. I cut deep.